come into tonight's session on the art of focus. Let me give an introduction to our esteemed and admired speaker of tonight, Siddharth Sehgal. Siddharth is a product manager who likes pushing through to outcomes by solving customer problems. He's a firm believer in whoever is closest to the customer builds a roadmap for the product. Siddharth likes to read about successful people and companies and to connect the dots of this learning with his ambitions and opportunities at hand. A very warm welcome to you, Siddharth. We are thrilled to have you here with us tonight. Handing the session over to you now.
Thank you, Shama. Thanks for the introduction. And good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me here. I'll just briefly share my screen.
Sure.
Thank you, Shama, for the great introduction, and thank you guys for spending your time with us in the for this. And let's make it a more of a discussion than a one-way walkthrough of what I have to share. Right. Disclaimer is that I'm in no means any kind of a researcher or a scientist in terms of focus or psychology or arts like that. But things like that I pick up while I read, while I'm trying to learn, and trying to hone the craft of product management. I just want to share it with all of you. Hopefully, we all will take away a few things from ourselves here in this call, and we will be able to ensure that we all spend this time, which is fruitful at least, right? So this evening we'll be talking about the art of focus, and and please feel free to post your comments, and Shama, please feel free to stop me, right? And then we'll be happy to take questions.
Sure, Siddharth.
All right, I think we should get going. So why are we talking about focus here, right? Because PMs essentially are swarmed with so much work all day long, right? They're like firefighting with customers. There's like planning which has to be done for the product, which is going to be shipped in the next couple of months. There's already a pipeline in terms of execution, which is happening. There is escalations, there are bugs to get fixed, there is planning to be done, right? And there's like so much fire to fight that it becomes very difficult to figure out what to focus on at what point of time and why, right? And why is that important for to ensure that we all learn the art of focus to ensure we are all able to succeed, right? So this is one framework which I figured out from a book by Tony Shea, right? And this is an excellent picturization of what association of yourself towards making yourself happy, right? And but I could also connect this with what PMs do, right, at each level that they work at, right? So here what he's trying to say is that pleasure is something where somebody is looking for short-term gains, right? Short-term, you're trying to chase the next high. What can I do next to stay happy? But that's very short-lived, right? Next level of happiness is achieved when you are passionate about something, and then you are into the zone, and you are trying to you lose track of time. You're so associated into that, and you're trying to achieve goals, and you're all focused towards this. The third level, which is the highest level of happiness according to him, is when you are associated with the purpose, which is much bigger than what you are, right? And that's where I think we all feel the happiest, right? When we're associated with something, right? So PMs also are working at these three different levels, right? I'll briefly explain how, right? So I think you all know that the three most important words in a PM's life is what, how, and why, right? And PMs essentially work in this zone over here of the what, right? Wherein we are focused more on shipping software, right? Where we are focused more on next deadline, the timeline to meet, right? And we are happy about the execution bit of it, which is also important. I'm not saying it is not important, but at the same time, that's not the full responsibility of a PM, right? So we all operate in this specific zone of what, right? Of what is the product we're trying to build. what are we going to do about it, right? And that is where is where it is the basis of a lot of things that PMs work on, right? And we start from here. The next level is how, right? That level is associated with outcomes, right? So shipping software is not the goal, achieving outcomes is, right? And then at the next level you are associated with goals, right? You are associated with achieving those goals as a PM, right? Which is absolutely important. And you are in that state of flow, right, where you are you're so in depth that uh, goals to be taken care of, that you lose track of time, and you are in that zone, right? The next level is the why, right? Of what I was just saying, that why does a company exist, why does a product exist, why do we have to work on this problem at this point of time, why do we even need to have this product, right? So these three levels is where PMs at different stages of their lives, different stages of their experience operate, right? They all three of them are important. Unfortunately, folks start from the bottom, right? Our journeys would become a lot easier if we start from the top, right? Where we all understand the why of things, that why am I a PM, right? Why do I like this craft? Why is that my product is important to somebody? Why is that somebody will value that? Why is that somebody would spend the time, right? Basis this framework, I'm going to break this up into three parts, right? One is that what is the purpose, right, that you need to focus on, right? And then we'll briefly talk about the outcomes, right? And third, we'll talk about what do we all need to focus on to achieve these goals, right? And I will move on from here, right? So I've just picked up few quotes from books which I read, right? And I try to follow these, and build these as principles for myself. And then I'd like to share these with you as well, because I think these are important, and they have helped me, right? And I'm sure it would also help you to an extent, right? And please feel free to stop me in case you have any questions there itself, right? So people don't buy the what, people buy the why, right? People don't buy Apple phones, right? They associate with the brand. There is a loyalty associated with that brand, because the purpose in which Apple operates is challenging the status quo, right? So people associated with that, Apple phones are not the best phones out there. And the book which Simon has wrote, right, I think he's explained this beautifully. If you all have the time, please go and read the book. Start with the why, right? So we all will need to do that soul searching for ourselves to understand, why does our company exist, right? Why does our product exist? Why do we have to work on this feature, right? Why do I what is the purpose for myself, right? And that depends on at what stage you are in this cycle of being a PM, right? You will not be able to understand how to sell the product or how to market the product unless you understand the why of the product. That's the only most important thing that a PM needs to do, is understand the why, right? Go into the depth of that, understand every single piece of it, right? Only then that messaging that you will be doing on your marketing copy will be able to connect with the people who are in the target segment, right? Only then will you be able to make that sales pitch which connects with people who are willing to buy the product, right? So defining the why, but it's very difficult, right? um, and companies do a shoddy job at it. They put nouns on the board, like trust, innovation, right? While these should be verbs, right? And it is like example is integrity versus doing the right thing, right? When you say that I believe in doing the right thing, right? You have defined that value for yourself, for the company, right? And you are following those values across everything you do, right? Across every customer interaction, across every interaction with an employee, across every interaction with the team, right? So defining the why, focus on the purpose, I think is where companies, products, features, plan should start with, right? Once the why is defined, right, we can then jump on to the outcome, right? But for this discussion, right, I think, since we all are either PMs or we are all, looking up to be a PM, right, working towards that. I think a focus on the craft also is important. I think it talks of like volumes of your thought process towards the same lines, because now you are here and then you have that interest, right? You need to learn, you want to learn the art and the craft of PM, right? And a great saying, right? A wooden wheel is not noble, but its shaping can be, right? And the outcome is important, right? But it is an infinite game we all are playing, right? We don't want to be tactical and playing every quarter by quarter, right? And until you have that association with that craft, right, uh, you will not be able to succeed, right? And which is not going to be a happy place to be in, right? So keep going deeper, keep learning every single day, never stop there, right? You don't really need a rarefied job, right? You instead need a rarefied approach to your work, right? You need to understand that the way you work, the way you're associated with the purpose of what you're trying to do towards a product, towards a feature, right? That craft, that journey is important, right? That time you're spending towards thinking on the lines of solving a specific problem for a customer, right, of building a specific product is important, right? And your association with that craft and your association with understanding that you need to keep building on top of that is very important, right? And the way I operate in this zone is that I keep on learning and I keep building these principles, right? And these principles is what I keep following every single day till I become those principles, right? Till they're ingrained in my subconscious mind and they happen automatically, right? Sampling, like cultivating craftsmanship is necessary, like and it is a very deep task, right? And it will involve deep work. It is not going to be easy. It is not going to be simple. It is not going to be something which we can do by not spending the explicit effort to learn, right? We all need to spend that time. We all need to figure out how do we do it, right? And it's going to be tough, right? Next we can go on and talk briefly about how are why is product management a difficult job, right? I mean, it looks sexy from the outside, right? Because this guy is like sitting somewhere and he's controlling every single thing that the team is doing. It is not that sexy, once you're doing it, right? I'm sure you all are there, right? And you all like know that the ability to master, right, the ability to quickly go into depth, ability to quickly learn, right, a new domain, a new product, a new market, a new segment, a new customer is extremely important, right? And to produce outcomes, right, and to do that consistently, right, is very important for a product manager to succeed, right? No matter how skilled you are or talented you are, right, if you don't achieve outcomes, right, you will fail. It is not going to be successful. And like going back to the first slide, right, the outcome is not shipping software, right? The outcome is goals defined, right? And these are usually goals defined which will help business thrive, which is how well are we retaining existing customers, how well are we onboarding new clients to the platform, right? How well are we going deeper into the wallet share of customers who are working through us, right? And it is very important to have these goals defined very clearly, right? And if you have too many goals, right, it is said that if you have too many priorities, there's nothing is priority for you then, right? So clarity across multiple groups, right? So once you have these goals defined, you have, of course, this has to be associated with the purpose of the company, and then you're defining goals to keep making progress on the purpose, right? Purpose is never going to end. It can change, right? It can modify while you're trying to deliver value, right? But the outcomes you've defined, the goals you've defined should be in the framework which has been defined by the purpose of the company, right? And once those are defined, right, one needs to, the PM's job is to go ahead and make it very clear across the organization, right? That will help achieving those outcomes very easily, right? And finally, once the outcomes are defined, you have defined all, like, given all clarity to everybody, and then you have spend the time planning it out, and execute, trying to execute on it really well. It is very important for you to own the outcome, right? It is not going to be possible for one to win always, right? It is okay to fail. It is okay to accept. It is not okay to learn from it, right? I mean, to not learn from mistakes you had done, right? But it is okay to fail, right? So it is a PM's job to own our outcomes, right? It is PM's job to ensure that they are the one who is shielding the entire team from the fire which will come at them, right? And a bunch of folks, right? I mean, I've worked with many organizations, right? And very few organizations do a good job at defining goals, right? Goals need to be actionable. Goals need to have numbers. Goals need to have dates, right? A goal is not a goal till you have a date on it, right? That definition of goal, I mean, folks know of it, but since it is not going to be easy, right? People don't spend that effort, going into that space, right? I would like to take a pause here and see if there are any questions that people have that I can answer.
We don't have any question yet, Siddharth. I'll notify you once we have. Audience, yet another reminder, please post your questions as you progress with the session, and we'll take them as it comes. You can
Okay.
post a question in the Q&A window, or you can come online and even have a chat with Siddharth. You can just raise your hand and I can unmute you. Carry on, Siddharth. Yeah.
All right, cool. So next, I think, once you defined all the outcomes, right? You defined what are the goals that one needs to achieve, right? Now, next step is to define problems that you'll have to solve to achieve these goals, right? So we started with the purpose, we define the outcomes, and now we're trying to see how do we achieve these outcomes, right? What do I have to do to ensure that my outcomes are achieved? This is a more predictable space for me, right? Now, folks like doing things. I mean, especially in the world of technology, you want to experiment with things and you want to try out new things, which is good, right? That has to be supported, right? Which has to thrive, because this is how people try doing things differently and innovation happens, right? But everything we do has to solve a problem, right? And that definition of a problem is extremely important, right? Like I said, right, many folks have said this, right, that a problem well stated is a problem half solved, right? Understanding, identifying, and then articulating it well, I think is the first job when you are in terms of when you have reached the stage of executing on a plan, right? That's identifying that problem is an art, right? And it needs solid understanding of the customer, of the market, of the pain points, of the data, of what customers value, right? Once you have identified, right, um, then I think it becomes easier, and it is a more focused discussion, right? And like you all know multiple ways of identifying this, right? You all can go and talk to customers, you all can look into data, you all can look into, like, different things of identifying these, right? So the way to identify problems and then prioritizing them, I think, I mean, of course, prioritization is a different discussion for a different day, right? But I've heard of many frameworks, right? But in real world, I didn't see those frameworks actually work, right? It is more art than science, right? And you have to define values. You have to define framework for yourself, right? For the kind of specific product you are in, right? For the kind of specific space you're operating in, right? And then basis that, you have to define your value scale of what customers would value, how big is this problem, what kind of impact it will bring, right? And that framework is then going to be useful to you for prioritizing things, right? You will have to define 2 or 3 different swim lanes, right? You can't be putting in all effort in terms of defining short-term goals, right? You're not going to be putting all effort in defining things which will bring impact 5 years down the line, right? But you'll have to define these different swim lanes, and especially with smaller companies where bandwidth is always a concern, right? People are always short of the resources. um, you have to use those resources prudently, right? And you have to ensure that you're prioritizing it right. Problems that look, so I mean, whenever we're doing this problem identification process, there's always a recency bias that you all start thinking about problems which cropped up yesterday, right? And those might not be the most important problems to solve for the company, for the product, right? But so you'll have to put that aside, right, and zoom out and look at the bigger scheme of things there, right? uh, Problem which look urgent on the face might not be the most important ones to solve right now, right? And they may be, we can wait there. Next, I think, I think which is the most important thing of, what I have taken away from, the experience I've had in terms of product management so far is, like I keep saying this, and like a broken record, it's on my LinkedIn profile, it's on my CV, it's here, it's on the profile bio, everywhere, right? That whoever is closest to the customer builds a roadmap for the product, right? So if you do not want to be somebody who's like executing on a roadmap somebody else has built, right, you better spend the time talking to customers, right? That's product management 101, right? There's nothing more important than this, right? So the why of things and understanding the customers, I think these two are the things. If I had to think about couple of things which I keep in mind all the time, 24/7, whenever I am in a meeting, whenever I am executing on a plan, these two things I think are the most important things which come to my rescue all the time, right? So whenever I take up a new assignment, I definitely make it a point that I go into depth of understanding customers first, right? Which means that I would spend the first few days slash weeks in terms of making calls, right? And these could be cold calls, right? These could be calls that I mean, you'll have to throw your ego out of the window. Yeah, right. You can't be thinking about, oh, what the customer will say, what if somebody hangs up the phone on me, right? It is okay, right? Because you're doing it for yourself. Only when you're talking to your customers, only when you understand who they actually are, what their motivations are, what drives their enthusiasm, right? What will help them solve the problems which they're facing, right? Identifying those like problems itself. Unless you do all of that, right, you will not be able to build the right product. You'll not be able to, that product you will be building will not be solving the right problem for that customer, right? Now, talking to customer itself is a very deep topic, right? How do you identify the right persona to talk to, right? How do you figure out that this person is a user, but then there's one more persona in that business who's the decision maker? You also have a gatekeeper. How do I talk to, who do I talk to, right? So you'll need to go prepared in terms of understanding what questions do you want to get answers to, right? You're not going into that interview to you know to get appreciation on the product, right? uh, which is fine, right? Which can wait, right? But your goal of that interview is to understand problems that person is facing in their lives. How are they solving that? How frequently is that problem happening, right? How big is that problem for them, right? And then keep talking to these different folks, and then that will help you identify and build a pattern, right? And then you'll start creating these values, right? And which we just spoke about, right? Now you'll be able to understand how do you define the purpose for the product, right? How do you define the purpose, the why of the feature, right? um, and I've seen like multiple PMs fail this at this, right? Multiple PMs are don't feel this is important enough. They're always busy with like 200 things. There's no time for talking to customers, or it is something that the sales team does, and it is not that what we do, right? And that translation via somebody, of course, the customer facing teams are the eyes and ears of the organization, but You are as a PM cannot take it because they have their own motivations. Like a salesperson wants to sell the product, right? They want to close the deal as soon as they can, right? Because they are motivated towards that, and that's their role, that's their job, right? So understanding customer issues, understanding customer problems via somebody might not be the best way, right? Of course, you can't do it at scale, and you can't do like 10 calls a day, right? And you can at least do a call a day, right? Spend hour a day understanding customers well until you form that strong opinion about things, right? I think a few good ways is to do customer support by yourself, right? A few good ways is to go ahead and sell the product, right? I found selling the product extremely effective. Then, when you're actually in a sales call, people are interested, right? And then the real questions come, right? If you're not fishing for compliments there, right? You are there to sell the product, and you want to understand what kind of problems people face and how your current product is capable of solving them or not, right? That's a reality check, right? And if and folks will be okay, they'll be happy to answer questions, right? Where you'll be able to take away problems, right? If you ask them, would you use this, they would say yes, right? Because they want to be nice to you, right? They won't be rude at you, explaining that, oh, I didn't think I'll use this because it is easy, right? They will be nice, and they'll shut down there itself, right? um, Building that association with that customer, having that list of customers you can always talk to, make friends with them, right? Talk with them, right? Very frequently. Ensure that they feel comfortable when they're talking with you, right? That's a skill set which you will hone over time, but the first few calls are really difficult. The first few calls, when you don't understand the product, you've gone into a new job, you don't understand the product well, you don't understand the market well. How can I go and talk to an expert that what will the customer think about me, right? uh, it is okay, you will fail, right? But you have to start somewhere. All right, moving on. I think the next important thing that we all need to focus on is the people, is the team, right? Product building process, product development process is a team sport, right? And you as a product manager on a product, right? People need to look up to you. People need to You need to be that go-to person for the team. You need to be that person who's right, the most believable person in the group, right? Who folks feel comfortable talking to, right? uh, like it said that your people will make you your leader, right? Your title could be a PM or a principal product manager or a director or a VP, right? Nobody cares about that, right? You have to prove yourself in every single job you will go into, every single assignment you'll take up, right? You'll start from scratch, right? And it is okay, right? So all PMs for their lives also will have an individual contributor role, right? A people manager PM cannot sit back and say that, okay, I will now manage folks. The PMs that work in my team will take care of stuff, right? That's not how it's going to work, right? To gain their trust, to gain their respect, you have to showcase your craft, right? You have to keep in touch with the craft, which is what you're hired for, right? People don't believe in hiring managers to manage managers who come with a lot of years of experience, right? So you, for doing that, I think becoming the believable person in that group, in the team, is not that easy, right? Because you have to work hard towards it, right? You have to understand, again, going back, you have to understand the customer. You have to have the strongest opinion about things, right? Strongest opinion which are loosely held, right? You have to lead by example, right? You have to ensure that you are the most hardworking person. If you set high standards for the entire team, if you set high standards for the product, if you have set high standards for the company, you are the one who should be the first one to achieve those and break those barriers you set, right? So that that benchmark is set, right? If you expect folks to deliver a certain quality, you showcase that first, right? If you expect them to work hard, right, you have to be the most hardworking person out there, right? um, which are again going back to the same thing, right? So when you're defining these principles by which you want the team to operate, to which you want the product to operate, you have to live those principles also, right? And you have to live by them, and you have to keep practicing them every single day, right? One important learning that I would like to share with this group is that, you know, you have to start thinking about making execution a part of the strategy itself, right? That uh, this whole group of people, of developers, UX, QA, content, marketing, sales, customer support, right? Uh, you are working with a smart bunch of folks, right, who are excited about solving problems, right? They don't want you to dictate or tell them what has to be built, right? Your job is to build, get a list of important problems to solve, right? And then include other big believable people, right? People who you look up to, people who you feel are experts in their spaces, right? A tech person who would know, like, their domain in depth, right? Which you might not know, right? You want to take that person along, right? You want to take the UX expert with you, right? Because you might not be the best UX guy out there, right? You'll have to start including them early on, right? Your people is what will help you succeed, right? And I think, bunch of folks, miss that part, right? That it is one product team. It is not engineering versus product versus QA versus design versus sales versus marketing, right? It is not like that. It is one product team which is working towards the common goal, working towards a common goal of achieving success, achieving outcomes for the product, right? Okay, moving on. All right, so I'm sure that you all have, like, if you've been through courses, and if you've been through other lectures like this, or if you've been through other or if you're practicing product right now, right, you'd understand the value of what data brings to the table and why is it important in a PM's life. I've seen a bunch of folks who do or spend the time digging deeper into data, trying to find insights, just because they are told to do so, right? You cannot be lazy here. You cannot be lazy with data. You cannot be lazy with understanding customers. That just that cannot happen, right? That's unacceptable, right? So no data at all is not good at all, right? So you will have to be the first one to set and ensure that you are, once the goals are set, right, those are quantified, and those levels of data which will help you break it down, that all the input metrics will help you achieve that output metric of yours, right? Those input metrics have to be defined very clearly, and those input metrics have to be actionable, right? It's not going to be that, you just define these fancy dashboards and reports and notifications and emailers and reports, all those things, right? If they're not actionable, they're useless, right? You will need to know where to stop, though, right? I mean, don't go overboard with that as well, right? You need to know that at what point of time I've lost track. I just got sucked up into the data mess, right? And that maze is going to be very difficult to traverse if you lose track of what you were trying to achieve, right? So keep your eyes on the outcome you're trying to achieve, the questions you want to get answers from, the data you're trying to dig deeper into, right? That I think I've seen a bunch of folks get sucked up into this in, like, multiple calls. You'd see, we keep, like, debating on data and this and that, right? That after a while we lose track of what we're trying to solve, what are we trying to achieve, right? So keeping an eye on that outcome, I think is extremely important for making sure that you're making the best out of the data which is available to you at that point of time. Okay, moving on, right? So we just the whole goal of this discussion was to talk about focus, and focus usually would, the general concept is to focus on one thing, right? Now, unfortunately, a PM cannot do all of that, right? Because there's like bunch of things you all have to do, right? A bunch of fires to fight, bunch of issues to take care of, bunch of stakeholders to manage, really, really important, bunch of communications to send, bunch of difficult customers to handle, right? I just like this line, which is, it just states like, when in doubt, zoom out, right? When you don't have clarity, when you don't know what to do next, when you don't know what problem to identify next, when you don't understand, when you're lost, right? When you're just, the days are passing in a maze, right? That I've spent the entire day, I was so busy, right? I worked hard towards achieving success for the product, right? I've earned my bread, I've done my job, right? Do not mistake busyness for productivity, right? You will get sucked up into that, and then you lose track of what are the actual outcomes that need to be achieved, right? So you will need to understand when to step back, when to zoom out, right? When to look at the bigger picture, right? When you are not too sure about what problem to solve, like when you're defining the product strategy, when you're defining the roadmap, when you plan the sprint, right? You will need to step back, right? You will need to step back. You'll need to understand the bigger scheme of things. You need to connect the dots somehow, right? That purpose is here, outcome is here. My roadmap should look something like this. These are the problems I would have identified after talking to customers, after looking into data, after talking to other believable people in the company. I should be doing this, right? But to connect those dots, you have to zoom out, right? I know it is difficult. I know it is, it is very easy to, get sucked up into the fires we all fight. And I'll briefly talk about what I do to, not get sidelined because of that, right? Where I can keep my focus on the important goals for the company, that they don't suffer because of my lack of focus, right? Uh, when do you zoom in, right? When will you need to zoom in into depth, right? When you're defining a product, when you're writing your PRD, right? When you are defining the UX for a product, right? Then you are like focused, and then you have to like cut off all the noise, right? You have defined that this is the next problem I have to solve. Now I have to go into depth, right? So step one, you have to go wide, understand the bigger scheme of things, build out a plan, build out the list of the problems you have to solve, and then you start going deep, one at a time, right? You have to go deep when you're driving execution for a project, right? You have to ensure that the GTM is set up, and you have to ensure that you're going into depth, that you have exhausted all channels to reach out to the right segment of customers. You've done your job in depth, understanding the right customer segments, ensuring that what communication needs to go out to what segment, right? You have to go into depth when you're defining customer support processes, right? So that's where one has to go deep, right? You have to go deep when you're in discussions, when you're in debate in terms of problem solving, right? When you're solutioning for things, right? Then you have to go into depth, right? You have to hone this craft of seeing forest and trees, right? You'll have to know when to zoom out and when to zoom in, and that usually comes with practice, right? Now, as you gain experience, right, you will also, I mean, the kind of responsibility will also grow, right? You'll be asked for, like, too much is going to be asked of you, and you'll be dealing with multiple products, multiple customer segments, multiple divisions, multiple teams, right? How do you focus at scale, right? How do you ensure that the principles that you have defined for the product, for yourself, right? How would that happen at scale, that everybody in the team, like we said, it's a team sport, right? Everybody in that team understands that we have to drive by those principles, right? So the first thing is you have to define those core values by which you stand, right? By which you have identified that the product should stand, right? For example, it could be like you have to build trust with your customer. Then speed is one thing that your customers value, right? You have to save time for them, and you have to make the product very transparent. that they that they know very clearly that what is happening, right? So trust and transparency and speed, right, could be the values which you define for the product, right? And then you have to explain that, you have to communicate and over communicate that across the teams, right? Ensuring that you play it like a broken record every single time you meet, that till those strong opinions of yours in terms of values, principles are ingrained in every single person in the team. Only then will you be able to scale, right? You have to define a framework in which to operate, right? And then give the team a freedom to operate and experiment in that specific framework, right? You'll have to stand by them. You have to ensure that you're giving them that air cover to ensure that they feel safe, right? That if shit hits the fan, right, you are the first one who's standing there, right? And you'll not help them, have them, yeah, be hurt on things, right? But that won't mean you don't make them accountable on things, right? They definitely have to be accountable, but they should not feel they should feel safe. Only then will they take the risk to go ahead and experiment with new things. Only then will innovation actually happen. Okay, last thing, right? How do we practice focus, right? What do we do to achieve this, that zone where you're able to go into depth and do your deep work, and wherever it needs deep thought, right? The goal is not to say yes to the most important or the most interesting idea. The goal is to say no to a lot of distractions, which I think Steve Jobs has put very nicely here in this quote, right? Um, our lives now are like very distracted, especially in the times of COVID. Like we all are working from home, meetings have gone up, uh, emails have volumes have gone up, right? You are expected to be connected throughout the day, right? You're expected to answer things very instantly, right? Perceptions get formed if you're not answering things at the within 1 to 5 minutes of you seeing them, right? How do you ensure that one is still able to drive that kind of depth which is required for us to hone the craft, one, and ensure that we're able to achieve the outcomes towards the purpose defined for the product, right? The way I do it, and I'm sure that you all will have to figure it out for yourselves, right? I mean, I can't prescribe things to you. You'll have to see what works for you, right? I try to stay away from social platforms, right? And because they distract me, right? If there's something which is not adding value to me in my life, right, I stay away from that, right? I have set times for checking emails, right? Once in the morning, once in the evening, right? I've set protocol for folks to give me a call in case there's something which is right, which requires my immediate attention, right? I have defined focused hours, right? I spend 2 hours every morning trying to read, right? Where I'm trying to hone the craft, right? I block certain hours throughout the week and over the weekend for my deep work, right? Where I write all the PRDs, where I do all the wireframing, where I uh, go deep into things, right? Um, People have now started, I mean, I've started seeing the trend now of people working off of their inboxes, right? So whenever you see an email, right, that becomes a priority for you, which might not be the case, right? So you need to step back and think whether this email is absolutely required to be answered right now or not, right? The way I do it is that I block calendar, right, for myself also, right? And I work off of my calendar, because if I don't block my time, somebody else will, right? And that might be the most important thing for them, right? But might not be the most important thing for myself, right? So all important things, I block my calendar a week in advance, very clearly defined, right? When I blocked that time, right, one thing which has helped me very clearly is the art of visualization, right? when I'm defining the product, right? How you should visualize how a customer would use your product, what their journey on your product is going to be, right? And that has helped me a lot, right? I mean, I can see very clearly about what use cases will I have to write the PRDs for, and edge cases which I might not think about, and start thinking about how a customer would sit on their desk and use my product on at what point in the day, right? So that power of visualization of what a customer would do, or how are they facing those problems at this point of time, I think is very important, right? The last thing which I usually practice is to shut down after a while, right? So it is very important to shut down your conscious mind, right? Your rational mind, which keeps thinking throughout the day, right? And it is very important to have certain kind of rituals there, where you train your mind that you stop your work here, your day has ended, right? My most important problem solving, and I'm sure that you all have also experienced this, right? That your subconscious mind starts solving for things your conscious mind has been thinking about throughout the day, right? It is important for us to shut down that conscious mind, right? That the subconscious mind can take over things, right? That has helped me a lot, right? And at times, when you go out for a walk, you taking a shower, right? uh, when you shut down your mind, it just happens that you have solved for things, right? And how to, a deep thing you wanted to solve for a long time, you were stuck somewhere, but now you're able to solve for that. Yeah, and I think the most important of all, right? I think we all need to enjoy the journey, right? Like I said, right? I think it's an infinite game, and we all need to, not be tactical about it, right? We all will fail, right? We all will fall down, right? All things which will go up will go down after a while, right? But we all need to learn how to, stand up again, and not take things personally, because nobody in this entire world owes you, right? So and yes, I mean, stay safe, right? Yeah, I mean, that's it from my side, guys. Any questions that you all have, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Siddharth, for delivering a brilliant webinar and really great and thought-provoking insights. We already have a few questions lined up in the Q&A section, so we can take them. Please let me share my screen meanwhile.
Okay.
Right. So audience, please go ahead and ask your questions in the Zoom Q&A window. And for the LinkedIn or YouTube or Twitter audiences, please share your questions in the comment section, and we can make the most of Siddharth's 1 hour that we have. So taking the first question here, this is from Syed Mohammed. Who should be close to a customer, a PM or a tech team, or both?
Everybody in the company should be close to the customer, right? So, but it is going to be your job to make it happen. It is going to be your job to ensure that everybody on the team, like he keeps saying, it is a team sport, right? Until that engineer who's going to be building the software doesn't understand the pain point that the customer is facing, right? They will not be able to put their heart and soul into it, right? So while you're doing this, please take your teams along with you, right? Everybody in the team needs to be close. Some people might not be able to spend the kind of time which will be taken up, but I think it is absolutely important for the folks who are solving for these things also to understand the real pain point. And I've seen brilliant things come out of it, right? They're able to understand and maybe look at it with a different lens, right, and solve it better, right, than what you would, right? So PMs don't have the biggest brains out there, right? They're not the smartest folks, right? Everybody on the team, on a good team is smart, right? And it is important for everybody to be participating in the entire exercise. Only then folks will feel empowered. Once they feel empowered, they are able, they would solve things more passionately than just being a job.
There is another question to that. It's a little different one, but he's asking if LinkedIn is a distraction.
It is. I mean, to me, it is, right? I mean, Do I gain from it? Yes, I do. Right? Can I shut it down completely? Maybe not. Right? Do I need to use my willpower, which is a finite source, right? To keep away from that, keep away from that urge of looking at things, right? Of what folks are doing, who's where, who's just approached me, right? That is what I'm trying to learn, right? And I've been successfully off of social platforms for the last 3-4 years now. But LinkedIn is one thing which is like a distraction to me yet, right? And I think I'll also need to see how I can go off of it. So
Great. I hope that answers your question, Mohammed. And coming to the next question, this is from Sangamitra. I sometimes try really hard to focus on a thing, but I soon drift away and start to imagine fake futuristic scenarios like giving a speech after receiving the award, etc. So, how much to stop this from happening? I think Sangamitra is like focusing on the art of focus. So, if you could help solve a problem, that'd be great. Siddharth.
sure. So I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing, right? I mean, now you're visualizing, right? You're visualizing you've done something excellent, right? You're visualizing the outcome that you are working towards this, right? You have to write this speech, but you're already visualizing what you will achieve once you do it in the right way, right? That suggestion enforces things in your subconscious mind, right? And that helps you solve for things better, right? Now, I mean, the way I do it is that I train myself that for these 4 hours on a Saturday, right? I am going to solve for this, right? And I'm going into depth. You might want to figure out a space at home, right? That this corner in the house is what I think is the place where I'm able to go into depth, right? And you consistently keep on doing it, right? Once your brain is smart, right? It'll start learning things by itself, right? So these kind of habits will take some days, right? But if you keep on practicing this very frequently, right, it will become your second nature, right? Yes, the first few days are going to be difficult, but you have to make conscious effort. You have to fake things up, right? That this hour, this place is where I would spend that these 2 hours, going into depth, right? Maybe those things would help, but I think I keep saying this, that you have to experiment for yourself. Nobody else from the outside, no expert, no doctor can come and give you what's going to work for you, right? You have to keep experimenting, you have to keep trying, and one thing, it will happen, but you have to put in the effort though, right? It is not going to be easy, but it is not difficult. I mean, it is not impossible at all.
That was great, Siddharth. Really, it should have helped everybody here. Great advice. So we'll take this next question. How to get out of I know all mentality when customer focus is ignored?
um See, I think for a PM to succeed, that fear of not knowing all, I think, is very important, right? That keeps you humble. That ensures that you're listening to learn, you're listening to absorb, right? And you're not listening to just answer, right? Uh, I know all definitely is where no folks start going down from, right? uh, you will need to ensure that nobody in this entire world knows everything, for sure, right? Everybody is learning, everybody is growing, everybody is trying to get new experiences to grow their way of thinking, make it better, or hone their craft, right? So I have seen a few folks, right, who keep thinking like this, but I don't think it's going to help, right? I mean, if it was more towards yourself, that I think you should stop doing that from to tomorrow itself, right? That there is no way that one would know all, right? And that fear of not knowing, I think, is very important. Keeps you humble, right? Your humility is going to be one of those important factors in terms of gaining trust from the team, right? You cannot be like delivering outcomes at scale if you're not that trustworthy person. Humility is going to be the key skill there.
Okay, so let's take this next question from Rohit. It's a two-part question. First part is you started the discussion with the happiness chart and also talked about a quote by Peter Drucker that you can't improve unless you measure. How do you measure happiness accurately across a diverse humanity? Wow.
Understood. Okay, so I'm happy at least you've been hearing this thought and you're trying to connect the dots, right? Which is good. So see, happiness unfortunately cannot be quantified, right? It is a way of life, right? Though we were able to draw your graphs and all those things, right? And outcomes, of course, will be more tactical, right? That you define goals, right? I think happiness comes from the craft, right? Happiness comes from, working towards a mission, working towards a purpose, right? I don't think happiness is a destination, right? Happiness is something you have to choose for yourself to do now, right? It has to be done explicitly. It has to be, a conscious choice, right? It has to, be that, thing you keep saying to yourself, I'm happy, right? I'm happy with this and I choose to be happy, right? So yes, I mean, measuring outcomes is, to ensure you're making progress, right? In terms of outcomes you've defined for the product, right? That happiness graph is more to do with the craft, right? If you have that association with that craft, and when you are in that zone of trying to go deep into achieving those outcomes, you feel happy, right? So that of course will help you, make progress also, while you'll have a fulfilling life as well, right? So I think that's a very deep question, right? I don't think I'm qualified to answer how do you measure happiness across humanity.
I think the topic is such that because we have another follow-up question, and I hope you
Sure.
have another 5 more minutes so we
Sure,
can
sure.
take. Yeah.
Yes.
So this question is: engineers are logical, but human psychology is an important aspect as well to improve the quality of product. How could a PM help an engineer understand this thing?
So I think PMs need to associate with customers at a human level first, right? I mean, they're all human beings first, right? Before becoming a customer of ours, right? Or a user of a product, right? That association at a human level, I think PMs also come from a tech background, and they're also like problem solvers, and though they have done math all their life, right? Engineers are logical. I mean, so I also have been one in the past, right? But I think that's a logic is a good skill set to have, right? But it is a PM's job to explain to the entire team, right, the core values of by which the product will stand by, right? And those values will come by going back to the same thing I've been talking about, right? When you keep talking to customers, right, you start forming opinions for yourself, right? And when you're talking to people, when you're explaining that purpose of that product, when you're explaining that why of that feature that you want the team to build, right? Once you keep explaining, once you keep repeating this, once you keep going deeper into that, and your tone, your passion will show, right? That you've understood the customer well, right? You have a solid understanding of them. You have the recommendations are based on solid customer qualitative interviews, right? And those things, engineers also are human beings first, right? So they also understand, connect with that, right? They're not different species, for God's sake, right? We are all human beings first, right? And we need to connect at a human level. It's a PM's job to ensure that they're able to, articulate that pain, articulate that, the trouble that a customer is going through to the entire team, that they're able to connect with that, right? That's the skill set. The narrative building, the articulation, the story building part, I think, of a PM is very important. And I'm sure that you all also have learned through like multiple sessions on that also. Okay.
Great. So in view of the time constraint, we'll take this one last question, Siddharth. Will be starting a new role as a product manager, agile DevOps. What else do I need to be acquainted with? And I'll club another question to that. What are the hard things as a PM role?
So, okay, very deep questions, right? What are the hard things, right?
Something from your experience that you would want to share
Right,
as an
right.
example.
So, I mean, I think the hardest thing for me has been to, ensure that I'm able to put across this narrative building piece. I think is extremely important. The articulation of why is extremely important. Making that connect with the team, right? Where you all feel you're a part of the common team and you're all going towards a common goal, right? I think which is the most important part of the product manager's role, right? Is very underserved and undervalued, right? It is always us versus them, right? I want you to build this. I have built the sprint plan. Please execute on this. I go into Scrum meetings and ask for updates. That's not how things work in real world, right? You have to form that bond. You have to form that connection. You have to spend the time outside off of your 5-star offices to understand customers' pain points, right? So if you're building a tech product, you have to understand the developers, right? It could be internal users also, right? It could be internal stakeholders also. You have to spend the time with them, gain their trust, understand their pain points, translate it well to the team, which is going to help you realize in terms of building a product which is going to help solve those problems you've identified, right? So that I think is the hardest part, and I see very few folks who spend intentional effort in trying to achieve those. And I'm talking about senior folks also, right? They might be good PMs, but it's very difficult to become a good leader, right? And and it takes conscious effort, and it's a constant exercise. One has to go through their entire life to keep on learning and keep on learning from your own mistakes, keep on building on your skill set, your tool set, and your keep on sharpening your craft there. So yeah, I think that is one thing that I would say. And for somebody who's going into a new role as a PM, right? Like I said, right, first 90 days you have to do things where you understand the problems really well, right? You have to understand customers really, really well, right? So all things, all process, all like PRD templates, understanding the sprint planning, this that can happen on the side, right? But if you're not able to understand the customer and articulate the problems well, right, you will not succeed, right? So the first 90 days are extremely important.
Great. This was indeed a great session, Siddharth. And audience, thank you for your participation. And please do not forget to scan the QR code on the screen for an exclusive 30-minute session with our industry practitioners like Siddharth to clear all your doubts and transition to a product manager role.
Thank you, guys. Stay safe.
So yes, for the final and most important part of the session, I request you to please help us pick the champion of curiosity for the session tonight. And we will award them with the free digital course as promised. So the questions are in the Q&A section in the answered section. Siddharth, if you can see, and please help us pick a winner.
I mean, I would pick the guy who was able to connect the dots, right?
Yes, but we'll also pick another winner because Rohit Dampal has been a favorite of all the speakers because he asks amazing questions. Yes, but help us pick another winner as well.
Maybe
so
he's here for the trophy all the time. Yeah.
No, he's been present throughout all the webinars for knowledge purpose, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, just 1 second. In the Q&A, there's no open.
The answered part.
Answered question, right? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think Syed question was good, right? It just stumped me because I have been thinking about LinkedIn as a distraction, but that's not necessarily the best question.
He also asked another question if engineers are logical. So yeah.
Oh yeah. I think the last one in the list.
Right.
Yeah. So I think
great, Syed. Congratulations on winning the free digital course. We'll get in touch with you shortly with the reward. We have enjoyed having you with us, Siddharth. It's been a complete pleasure. Please accept this certificate of appreciation from the Institute, a small gesture. So if you scan the QR code on the screen, it'll take you to a dedicated Hall of Fame page that we have created for you with the recording of the session. Please share it within your network, and we'll be sharing the webinar recording on our YouTube channel as well. We're grateful for the time and effort you took to share your thoughts and amazing insights and drawn from your research and experience in the industry. Thank you for joining us again.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you, guys. Stay safe. Bye.
And audience, thank you for joining in. It was great chatting with you all. Do not forget to register for the upcoming webinars, and please do not miss out on any of the Product Leadership Festival Product Edition webinars as well. With that note, I end tonight's session. Happy learning and stay skilled. Have a great night. Thank you, Siddharth.
Thank you.